right, here we go. Following Jesus is going to be my brainstorm for the day here. Following Big J. You might hear me call him Jeebus every once in a while because that's my nickname for him. And you might get offended, listening to me talk about him. If you get offended, though, this is YouTube, so you can click off. And I don't mean to be offensive. It's just if you're offended, there's probably religion involved in your life and in your mind, and running around in the background, and all the stuff you've been told. And I come off as being, I don't know. What is it? Like, I don't have any respect, I guess, is how some religious folks see me. For him, I have. On the contrary, I would say I have the highest of respect for him. The Son of Man is what he called himself. But, and Jesus isn't, Jesus is kind of the name we came up with. His actual Hebrew name was the same as the one that in English, we transliterated to Joshua, so go figure. So apparently it's not that important. I don't know if it's important to know his actual name as long as you know him and you have a name, when you're in conversation with him. So if you're offended, then religion's gonna stop you from even talking about following Jesus. Really, they just tell you are. Okay, you're already following Jesus if you're in our club or whatever, or membership, and you are, and entitled as Christian, which in one sense means a follower of Christ. I'm not going to get into all of that, but what's been like for me, as much as I've been able to do it, I can tell you it hasn't been what I see out there being called following Jesus, but following Jeebus. I apologize for my speech impediment and whatever else, but I can still talk. I hope you can understand what I'm saying. I'm doing this mostly, it's kind of a journaling thing I'm doing. I'm not really a great teacher. I don't see myself as a teacher, and I don't really think I have reached the level to teach. But I can talk from experience, and from experience I can to match it up with biblical text sometimes, because I'm very familiar with the biblical text. What this is like, following Jesus. So hopefully I spelled it right, but I can tell you what he says about it. He says, you follow me, you're going to get persecuted if you follow. I'll put that up here. You follow. Oops. Mm-hmm. Jesus, you will have persecutions, which, all this that I'm getting ready to say is probably why there's not that many people jumping on the wagon. This is awful. It's early in the morning too. Maybe I'll get better, but this is what we got right now, and what I got. You're going to be persecuted the same way he was, pretty much, which entailed everywhere. The very first healing that he did, the man waiting to buy some well outside of Jerusalem, the religious guys caught the guy walking home with his mat, which is what Jesus told him to do, and they stopped him because it was a Sabbath. And traditionally, you're not allowed to carry your bed on the Sabbath, I guess, was the thing. And as soon as they found out, to make this story, you can go read it. It's in all the Gospels. I think it's in John. soon as they found out that Jesus told them to go home, they did a little backroom conference and decided to try to figure out how to get rid of him. So they were the ones who persecuted him. It wasn't the Romans. There wasn't any cops after him or anything. He wasn't a lawbreaker. He didn't break any civil laws or cause any civil problems. He was causing these guys problems, the ones who were making money off of the hoo-ha they had been selling. And John the Baptist had already had him in an uproar, I'm sure, because he took away all their baptismal money that they were getting and all their, because he was doing the real purification right, the way it was described in their law. So these guys were already, and they're occupied. There's an occupied nation going. I'm sure it was hard times. So they were trying to keep their place, is one of the things that they said. And so they followed him around. Every time they caught him doing something, they accused him of being a lawbreaker and a demon-possessed and crazy and a sorcerer and on and on and on. They villainized him everywhere they went. Every time they caught him out. Healing, especially if he was doing it on a Sabbath. Oh my. So what happens if you try to follow him? You get those same religious characters. I found one of the first things I found out when I started hanging out with Jesus was that the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the teachers of the law, the scribes, the house of Herod, all those religious institutions that were causing all the issues. Why Israel was the lost sheep? The reason they were the lost sheep is because their shepherds were lost. So that's the ones that are going to cause issues when you follow Jesus. Okay? Also, so you're also more than likely going to end up without, you're going to end up unemployed and homeless. It's very possible. That's an O. I'm in trouble with my O's. Homeless. Because the Son of Man didn't have a place to lay his head down. He had a perfectly good house. It says in Mark, in a town called Capernaum. And he just left it. He walked off from it. And which is what he asked those who follow him to do. Leave. Sell everything. Leave your wife and kids and everything. Okay, that's hard to do. So far we got two things, and if you follow, this is the promise. So yeah, I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I understand very well why no one would want to follow that guy. And he didn't catch very many people. 120 showed up in the upper room. There's a discrepancy of, Paul mentions there's 500. It's differently translated differently, and I haven't really looked into it, but he calls them 500 brethren or 500 believers or 500 disciples saw him after his resurrection. So I don't know, but we know that there was 120 out of the whole. This is Israel. I mean, there's probably over 1 million people in that country at the time. And yet he only could come up with 12 that hang out with him all the time. There was only 12 of them that actually followed him everywhere. But for the right reasons, okay? Here's the reasons. Obviously, it's not because unless you're into being persecuted or have always dreamed of being homeless, that's not much motivation right here. So what's a motivation? Motivation is the miracles. He said, if you follow me, you'll be able to do what he does. He even says greater things, which I'm still working at getting the things that he did done. I haven't seen greater. I don't think YouTube is greater, although, that's all I got right now. I don't think Jesus had YouTube. But, yeah, that's not a big draw. You can understand why people were looking for something else other than that. And there wasn't, the ones that were following it, the ones that were actually doing what he was doing, they got accused because religion took over. And they would accuse the people who were following Jesus of being witches. Same thing he was being accused of, and they ended up killing him, a bunch of them. And all they were doing was going around and miracle signs and wonders for following them. The church can't replicate that. Sorry. Is the church an alternative to following? I can't see it. I call it the church. I'm speaking loosely of the religion that was created in his name. Christianity, if you will. And is that a substitute? Well, that's all we got right now, I guess. I mean, but it's not following him because there's none of his example of, walking homeless and being persecuted all the time in the midst of all the miracle signs and wonders. There's not a whole lot of that going on. And they did away with it. Like I said, they actually hunted down the the people who did not want to associate with Christianity as it was emerging, and be, rounded up and only allowed to do their thing at a authorized Roman or whatever Christian building. But, so anyway, I guess go on. If you follow, you're going to get persecutions and you're going to be homeless. And he says this, he says, all men will hate you. You. That's a you. Wow. So, yeah. That's not a big draw either. And in my case, for a little bit of following I've done, what this is amounted to for me, if I speak to an atheist and I use the word Jesus, the name Jesus, they get all tripped out and they think I'm Christian. And if I tell Christians that I don't think that Jesus' father was the one that goes around killing us because he's mad at us and judging us, then they did. They both, I don't know, hate might be a little strong, but it's disapproval of that. There's a lot of disapproval going on. But unless you're the one that the miracle is happening to, or you see the sign or the wonder and understand it, then, which is the way it should be, I guess. That's how I got here. I was an atheist. I had a miracle happen to me at the hands of a man who said he was following Jesus. And here I am, some 40 years later. It affected my life permanently. And so my motivation to follow is I want to see more miracle signs and wonders. I think we're due for it. I don't see any other way to prove what he was saying was true. And what he was saying is that we're not here to judge. I say that the religion that was named after him is full of judgment. When I got involved with them, one of the first things they wanted, I don't want to talk bad about them forever and ever, really, but one of the first things they tried to tell me was, you got to, excuse me, about halfway to a hiccup there, was that you need to figure out whether or not they're going to heaven or hell. And if you think they're going to hell, which takes judgment, then you need to try to get them saved. And then, of course, the ascribed method is getting that person to come to Sunday services so that they can repent and be baptized. So yeah, the only reason I could find to follow him was the miracles, the signs and the wonders that follow around. This other stuff sucks. That sucks. You can get really lonely. Now So anyway, maybe we'll get to some of the stories. I don't know. If that's what you want and you see this video, then let me know. Otherwise, I'm just trying to weigh out in my own mind what's happened to me. This is what's happening to me. And so, yeah, I can see it. I don't want to be all depressed, though. It sucks. No wonder there's no one doing it. The weird thing is I think the church thinks that, or at least they say, by being part of their whatever denomination, whatever organization they're involved with. Oh, yeah, they're telling you you're going to go to heaven. I don't. There's all the stuff that you see from Jesus said and did. He doesn't ever say that it's going to get you to heaven, which, in my mind, that makes sense. We didn't come from heaven. There's no biblical foundation that we're supposed to return there. But with this mystical, magical place called heaven, which is where I do believe that the serpent that fooled us, that tricked us, lied to us, and has got us in this place, came from. I believe he did come from that astral plane, the first creation. And he does want to get back here. It does, whatever. So everyone who follows it, they want to go to heaven. But biblically, that's incorrect. Biblically, this is the earth, our part of creation. In the beginning was heaven, and then he created earth. Earth was the upgrade from heaven, and that's our inheritance. If be careful when you see the words heaven being used, and if you dig into it, you'll find out that most of it was just added. They had to have a heaven for a reward and a hell for, so they took a whole bunch of different things and made that into hell, the grave and death. And then they took heaven, which is where the fallen fell from, and that's where they want us to go to. We didn't come from there. We were created right here. We're clay with spirit blown into us, breathed into us, if you will. And we don't have any business in heaven. We'd be lost in heaven. Heaven would not be everything we have about anyone who's actually been to heaven. If you look into Enoch, because he's famous for having gone there and walked off, apparently stayed there. He was horrified in heaven. I mean, he didn't belong there. His face had to be frozen, etc. etc. It's all kind of weird stuff. So, yeah, I don't think that heaven's gonna. That's not enough for me. I really don't want to go to heaven. But this one entity calls itself God, that demands to be worshipped, demands to be served, demands you sing praises to him, demands you love him above all things, and you don't have any other gods. Demands. There isn't anything like Jesus. Anything like Jesus. So this is what this always boils down to me. Jesus was trying to show us the difference between our Father, okay, this is his Father, our Father, and God. There's a difference. And that's what, that's one of the things that he was proving. All the stuff that was wrong with all the people that he healed, the pastor was telling his congregation that God did that to that person. And then along comes Jesus, following the Holy Spirit, and sets those people free. The worst thing about this YouTube stuff is that, this is what I do all day long and face to face. Okay, same thing I'm doing here on the video. It's never exactly the same every time, you know what I mean? I don't have a set anything, but this is what's on my mind. This is what I'm talking about. I've been working all summer at trying to get back out there on the road. I feel like a hypocrite when I'm not, walking. I don't know what you want to call it. When they asked the people who were doing it back in the day, they just said they're just in the way. I do get in the way of a few of the churches and stuff, but yeah, I'd like to live stream it because things have changed a little bit, and the only way some people are going to see this is they're going to believe you need some miracles, is what I think. It's the way it was for me anyway. Now, he got all over the religious guys who after seeing all the miracles he was doing, demanded a sign. What did they want? They wanted a Moses kind of thing, part of Red Sea, swallow some people up, kill some sinners. He called that generation wicked who wants those kind of signs. And he told them the only sign they're going to get is, the sign of Jonah, where he was in the belly of the whale. So the Son of Man, right, be in the belly of the earth, and then after 3 days he came up. And their God wasn't strong enough to keep him in the grave. Just saying. He got up anyway. And he got up and he had been, for 3 years, he'd been undoing all the judgment that their God had put on all those people who were crippled and blind and demon possessed. That was all their God, they said. That's Almighty God. It's not unusual to this day to hear someone say, well, they would take it back and visit the sins of the fathers on the kids or whatever, grandkids. You know that because you can see it in the text. They still do it. There one guy was blind, and they said, well, they asked Jesus, I think it was some of the disciples asked Jesus, who sinned anyway, him or his parents? So all those people that were sick in that country had been labeled as getting their just desserts. God was giving them their thing, The Jews didn't have heaven or hell to look forward to. Everything was measured out in what you saw in life, and when Jesus came around and undid it, all of a sudden he's undoing what their God had done. So I've seen it happen. I've got lots of stories. I don't expect anybody to believe the stories because you weren't there, so I don't tell them on here. And but I can tell you, it still works the same way. If you don't mind the persecution and all this stuff, sorry. I'm choking myself up. All right, I'm going to hop off of here and figure out what to do next. If I could teach you something before I leave, I would like to teach you to consider praying the prayer he was, all Christians know about it, may even have it memorized, but look into the Father's kingdom replacing our Father of heaven. Didn't say in heaven, sorry, they mistranslated, imagine that. Our Father of heaven replace the kingdom, his kingdom come, his instruction, his ideas, the way, the right instruction come, so that this one gets dethroned. Okay? Replaces this kingdom. The Father's kingdom replaces the kingdom of the God of this world. All right? All right. Well, I hope you have a good time with this. And I'm working on doing this right now until I can get the other going again, until we can get a live feed out on the road. And I wish you peace. Later.